Rock and roll music is the most barbaric form of nonsense ever heard by human ears. Yes. Its attraction stems from barbaric beats that would not even appeal to a smart caveman. It appeals to the lower natures of men, and is disgusting. The solution to this problem is to send these savage rock and roll punks to another country. Signed, Elvis Presley.
May I ask you, so that I don't look too naive, a tough question right off the bat?
And whether I'm a Democrat or Republican?
Oh, baby.
Oh, Margaret Thatcher is not in town. She actually is in Washington and with meetings, and a reporter asked her what the biggest contribution that Great Britain has made. And she said, deporting Robin Leach.
Hello, 1, 2. Attention Kmart shoppers, aisle 34, garden hose and lawnmowers.
Well, welcome to The Tonight Show. Let me explain. This part of the program is what we call the monologue. Do you know where the term monologue comes from? I don't know if you know. It's kind of interesting. Log comes from the Greek root, meaning a collection of comments. And money comes from the word Monica, meaning a young intern who's easy to make fun of. Yeah. So you have monologue. You see, you have monologue.
I've been giving this situation a lot of thought. You know, this is a true story. When I was a little boy, I remember watching The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and thinking, someday I'm going to host that show for 7 months.
Welcome to The Tonight Show. This is the first Tonight Show broadcast from New York in over 40 years. Good, huh? Welcome. I'm Jimmy Fallon, and I'll be your host for now.
September 27th, 2024 will mark the 70th anniversary of The Tonight Show, a television institution that remains as popular today as it did when it premiered back in 1954. Throughout its history, The Tonight Show has had 6 different hosts over the course of 7 decades, each to varying successes, consistently ranking as the top-rated late-night show on television, one of the most profitable shows in the history of NBC, memorable moments and experiences that TV audiences will never forget. The Tonight Show has its permanent place in the annals of television history. But it was never easy. Varying controversies over the 70-year history of The Tonight Show, from network interference, to jokes getting unnecessarily pulled, to hosts literally quitting their show on the air, to new heads at NBC trying to bully the big moneymakers, to hosting controversy after hosting controversy after hosting controversy. The Tonight Show has seen it all, done it all, and been through it all in the last 7 decades. This is the story of how we got there. As with all stories, we have to go back to the beginning. The year is 1897, and in Poland, an inventor by the name of inventor Jan Stepanek patented a color television system in 1897, using a selenium photoelectric cell at the transmitter, an electromagnetic controlling an oscillating mirror, and a moving prism at the receiver. But his system contained no means of analyzing the spectrum of colors at the transmitting end, and could not have worked as he described it. Another inventor, Hovhannes Adamian, also experimented with color television as early as 1907. The first color television project is claimed by him and was patented in Germany on March 31st, 1908, then in Britain on April 1st, 1908, and in France and in Russia in 1910. Nearly 40 years later, television began to become the norm thanks to CBS becoming one of the first networks to begin testing the usage of color television in 1940. And American television broadcasting at the time was considered on a variety of markets in a wide range of sizes, each competing for programming and dominance within separate technology until deals were made with standards agreed upon in 1941. On April 30th, 1939, NBC became the latest network to make the jump from radio to television. 11 years later, NBC was looking to cement new groundbreaking territory in areas not just in radio, but in primetime as well, with the help of their president, Sylvester Pat Weaver, who's the father of somebody you might be familiar with.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Weaver saw untapped potential in areas that were not on most radars for other networks and decided to test the possibility of a show in the then unknown landscape of late-night television. That show was Broadway Open House and premiered on May 29th, 1950.
Here is the fellow who's in charge of the show, and Jerry Lester is his name. Just call me Beanbag. Jerry Lester.
The show was originally planned to be hosted by comic Don Creech Hornsby, so named because he yelled Creech a lot. Hornsby had been brought into the variety show business by Bob Hope, whose topical humor would serve as the basis for most of its late-night talk shows that would follow. 1 week before he was to begin hosting, the 26-year-old Hornsby suddenly contracted polio, from which he died on the day that he was set to host his first show, May 22, 1950. Hornsby's sudden demise forced NBC to postpone the show and rush to find new hosts on short notice. For the first few weeks, there were different hosts, including Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, Henry Youngman, and Robert Oldham, among others, with Maury Amsterdam hosting Mondays and Wednesdays. Broadway Open House was performed before a live studio audience in the manner of a stage show. Pat Weaver, an NBC executive at the time, noticed that the positive feedback that Jerry Lester, the then host of Cavalcade of Stars for Dumont, and his manic personality had received on a recent appearance on NBC, and offered Lester the hosting position almost immediately. Lester initially hosted the Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday episodes of Broadway Open House until Amsterdam exited the show, leaving Lester the sole host. Lester performed sketches with his crew of sidekicks, including some of the earliest TV appearances of brassy Barbara Nichols, running through standard nightclub comedy routines and introducing the show's vocal group, the Mellowlarks. Lester's signature piece was to twist his eyeglasses at a 45-degree angle on his face. The show had occasional guests including Lenny Bruce, who appeared in May of 1950, and Charlie Parker, who appeared on October 31st, 1950. There is an audio recording of this that exists of his appearance on the show. And there were also audience participation bits, such as having women from the audience join the female cast members in modeling fur coats. Lester's fondness for beanbags became a running gag on the series, and the sponsors included Anchor Hawking Glassware and Blatt's Beer.
Now, how are you, Jerry? Oh, I feel very talented tonight. I told you the truth. You're right lonely because you're just a bean.
Network variety shows were broadcast weekly, with the production staff having 1 week to create each new episode. Broadway Open House was under much more pressure, and it was a continuing challenge to come up with fresh material on a nightly basis.
All the brains thought that radio stopped at 10 o'clock, television stopped at 10 o'clock. So the contribution was the fact that we opened up an hour that people stay up. We proved it.
Starlet Jenny Lewis was given no script and told, "You just sit there and act dumb. Your name is Dagmar."
How do you like my equipment?
With her new name, she sat on a stool with a sign around her neck saying "Girl Slinger," did breathing exercises, and soon performed as a reader of poems and plays, while Lester made occasional jokes about her hidden talents. Her appearances created a sensation, leading to much press coverage and a salary increase from $75 to $1,250. Lester was now in the peculiar position of being the second banana on his own show, and he asked NBC to put him in another program. Lester left Broadway Open House in May of 1951, and Dagmar carried on as host. On July 16, 1951, she was featured on the front cover of Life, and the show came to an end 1 month later. Lester was retained as a rotating host for a new, earlier primetime variety show the next season called Chesterfield's Sound-Up Time, along with Fred Allen and Bob Hope. NBC filled the late-night time slot for the next year with Mary Kay's Nightcap, a non-comic show in which Mary Kay Stearns previews the next day's programming. For a short time, Dagmar was given a weekly late-night show of her own entitled Dagmar's Canteen. But the show's even later time slot at 12:15 on a Sunday morning and the lack of a comic partner for Dagmar to foil were factors in the show being short-lived. Dagmar's run on Open House and her appearances on other shows such as Colgate Comedy Hour, The Milton Berle Show, and Masquerade Party made her the first major female star of television. She continued making appearances on several shows during the late 1950s, specifically on Jack Parr's version of The Tonight Show. Which brings us into talking about the first host of The Tonight Show, Steve Allen.
Let's go back to 1953.
Okay. Oh, you mean in a certain sense. I'm sorry. All right.
Steve Allen was born on December 26, 1921. Allen was born in New York City, the only child of Billy Allen and Belle Montrose, a husband and wife vaudeville comedy team. His father died when he was an infant. Allen was raised on the south side of Chicago, largely by his mother's Irish Catholic family. Milton Berle called Allen's mother the funniest woman in vaudeville. Allen ran away at home at 16 and described in interviews the ease with which she descended into begging. Allen's first radio job was on station KOY in Phoenix, Arizona, after he left Arizona State Teachers College in Tempe while a sophomore. He enlisted in the United States Army during World War II and was trained as an infantryman. He served his enlistment period at Camp Roberts, California. After awards, he returned to Phoenix before moving back to California. Though he got his start in radio, Allen is best known for his extensive network television career. He gained national attention as a guest host on Arthur Godfrey's Talent Scouts. He then created a late-night talk show in New York City that debuted in July of 1953 on local station WNBT-TV, now WNBC-TV. The following year, on September 27, 1954, the show went on the full NBC network schedule as The Tonight Show, with fellow radio personality Gene Rayburn, who would later go on to become the host of such hit game shows as Match Game, as the original announcer. The show ran from 11:15 to 1 a.m. on the East Coast.
This is kind of a mild little show. I don't expect you to say, boy, what a program. No, just look at it and, decide in about a week what you think about it. It's not as spectacular. It's going to be kind of a monotonous, I think.
While Today was developed by Sylvester Pat Weaver, who is often credited as the Tonight Show creator, Allen often pointed out that he had created it earlier at a local New York show. Allen told his first nationwide audience that very first evening, "This is tonight, and I can't think of too much to tell you about it except I want to give you the bad news first. This program is going to go on forever. You think you're tired now? Wait until you see 1 o'clock roll around." It was as host of The Tonight Show that Allen pioneered the man-on-the-street comedic interviews and audience participation comedy breaks that went on to become staples of late-night television. Allen's version of the show originated such talk show staples as an opening monologue, celebrity interviews, audience participation, and comedy bits in which cameras were taken outside the studio, as well as music. Among the members of Allen's musical ensemble were Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet, who later became a married couple. The success of the show led to Allen receiving a separate weekly primetime show which aired on Sunday nights. Allen gave up the Monday and Tuesday shows, with guest hosts taking over for the summer of 1956. Beginning that fall, Ernie Kovacs, who came over from the faltering Dumont Television Network, became the original Monday and Tuesday host for the 1956-1957 season, with his own cast of regulars, including his own announcer, Bill Wendell, who would later work with David Letterman.
Here he is, the great El Clumsy.
It has nothing to do with modesty, but I've always been a little bit uncomfortable taking compliments for having created the talk show. But I honestly assume and believe that a million years ago there was some guy sitting on a tree stump in the jungle someplace, and on the fallen log just to his right there were a couple of other guys that stopped by and sat there for a minute, and he was talking to them. I imagine 3 men altogether do not sit silently. He probably said, "Did you catch your fish this morning?" And they probably said, "Yeah, 2, but one of them got away and my wife stole the other one," or whatever. So that is all there is to a talk show. I'm quite serious.
A kinescope of the very first episode of The Tonight Show has survived, and Allen's opening monologue has been rebroadcasted many times on Tonight Show anniversary specials and in documentaries such as Television, and more recently in NBC's 50 Years of Late Night special. In his opening remarks, Allen makes the persistent statement that tonight is going to go on forever, an apparent reference to the show's running time, then clocking in at 105 minutes with commercials. With several hours over the decades, it has done just that, albeit with a much different meaning than Allen intended.
The solution to this problem is to send these savage rock and roll punks to another country. Signed, Elvis Presley.
In June of 1956, NBC offered Allen a new primetime show in the Sunday night variety hour area, The Steve Allen Show. NBC's goal was to dethrone CBS's top-rated The Ed Sullivan Show. The show included a typical run of star performers, including early television appearances by rock and roll pioneers Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Fats Domino. Many popular television and film personalities were guest stars, including Bob Hope, Kim Novak, Errol Flynn, Abbott and Costello, Esther Williams, Jerry Lewis, Martha Raye, The Three Stooges, and a host of others. The show's regulars were Tom Poston, Louis Nye, Bill Dana, Don Knotts, Pat Harrington Jr., Dayton Allen, and Gabriel Dell. All except film veteran Dell, who had appeared in the Bowery Boys movie series, also known as the Dead End Kids and the East Side Kids. They were relatively obscure performers prior to the stints with Allen, and all went on to superstardom of their own. The comedians in Allen's gang often were seen in his man-on-the-street interviews about some topical subjects. Poston would appear as a dullard who could not remember his very own name. Nye's character was an effeminate advertising executive named Gordon Hathaway, known for greeting the host with, "Hi-ho, Steve Areno." Dana played amiable Latino Jose Jimenez. Knotts was an exceedingly jittery man who, when asked if he was nervous, invariably replied with an alarming "no." Harrington was the Italian immigrant and former golf pro Guido Panzini. Dayton Allen, who would get his start pairing various characters on the television series Howdy Doody, played wide-eyed zany, answering any given question with a question, "Why not?" Dell usually portrayed straight men in sketches, policemen, newsmen, dramatic actors, etc., and occasionally played the character Boris Nadell, a Bela Lugosi Dracula lookalike.
Folks, we landed in Cuba. Let's get out of here.
Other recurring routines included crazy shots, also known as wild pictures, a series of side gags accompanied by Allen on piano, Allen inviting audience members to select 3 musical notes at random, and then compromising a song based on the notes, a satire of radio's long-running The Answer Man, and a precursor to Johnny Carson's Karnak the Magnificent. For example, "It toot bloot," and Allen replying, "How many pizzas did you eat, Caesar?" And dramatic comedic readings of real letters to the editors from New York City newspapers.
In case you tuned in late, this is a scene from the new picture, Pedestrian.
Allen's show also had one of the longest unscripted crack-ups on live television when Allen began laughing hysterically during Big Bill's Allen's Sports Roundup. Allen, known for his infectious, high-pitched cackling laugh, laughed uncontrollably for over a minute with the audience laughing along, because, as he later explained, he caught sight of his unkempt hair on an off-camera monitor. He kept brushing his hair and changing hats to hide the messy hair, and the more he tried to correct his appearance, the messier and funnier it got.
Here it is now, you'll see. Good evening, this is your old Indian sportscaster. Your old stupid jerk Bill Allen bringing you, how are you, the complete sports roundup in the world of sports for all you jerky sports out there in Sportsland. Well, what's new in sports? I'll tell you what's new. The 1958 ouch baseball season is getting underway with the annual... Good night, folks. A little serious. That's it. Now, the annual spring... Seriously, all right, here we go. Now... Were this good. All right, here we go. The annual spring training warm-up. The big league teams are all at their spring training headquarters around the country. Let's see what's happening. And I give you Bill Allen's baseball scoop. Scoop! You're a better man than I am there. St. Petersburg, Florida. The New York Yankees have finally given trying to sign up the Yankee rookie holdout, Lefty Gerber. Lefty's been holding out since 1921. Now we're in trouble. All right.
Joshua, we're going to lose just a few of the stations here for about 1 minute. See that little white dot in the corner of the screen over there?
No, yes. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. There we are. Okay, 1, 2, 3. No,
I don't see anything. This man is blind.
Allen also helped the then new Polaroid camera become popular by demonstrating its instant picture capabilities during the live commercials and amassed a huge financial windfall for his work because he had opted to pay for it in Polaroid Corporation stock. Allen remained host of The Tonight Show for 3 nights of the week. Mondays and Tuesday nights were taken up by guest hosts for most of the summer of '56, then by Ernie Kovacs through January until 1957, when he left the show to devote his attention to the Sunday night program. It was his and NBC's hope that the Steve Allen Show could defeat Ed Sullivan in the ratings. Nevertheless, Maverick often bested both in audience sizes. In September of 1959, Allen relocated to Los Angeles and left Sunday night television in the 1959-60 season, originating from NBC's Color City in Burbank as the Steve Allen Plymouth Show on Monday nights. Back in Los Angeles, he continued to write songs, hosted other variety shows, and wrote books and articles about comedy. After being canceled at NBC in 1960, the show will return in the fall of 1961 on ABC as the new Steve Allen Show, with many of the same cast members from the previous show returning, and new cast members including Joey Foreman, Buck Henry, the Smothers Brothers, and Tim Conway, and Allen's wife, Jane Meadows. This version, however, didn't last long and was canceled after 14 episodes. After Allen's primetime show ended in 1960, he would intermittently return to the format he used on The Tonight Show, while syndicated programs bearing this name Steve Allen, from 1962 to 1964, 68 to 69, 1971. Allen would also return to occasionally guest host The Tonight Show during the Johnny Carson era. Between 1971 and 1982, he guest hosted 18 times. He would make his final appearance on The Tonight Show during Jay Leno's tenure at the show's 40th anniversary broadcast in 1994. Allen was a pianist and a prolific composer. By his own estimate, he's written more than 8,500 songs, some of which were recorded by numerous leading singers. Allen won the 1964 Grammy Award for Best Original Jazz Composition for Gravy Waltz, for which he wrote the lyrics. He also wrote more than 50 books, including novels, children's books, and books on opinions, including his final book, Vulgarians at the Gate, Trash TV, and Raunch Radio in 2001. So with Steve Allen gone, The Tonight Show went straight to the next host, right? Well, not exactly. In fact, it was completely not what you would have expected to happen. See, rather than continuing with the same format that Allen and Kovacs had made famous with The Tonight Show beforehand, NBC decided to change the show's format from a comedy show to a news and features show, similar to that of the network's popular morning program, The Today Show. That new show would be renamed Tonight America After Dark. It was first hosted by Jack LaScully and then by Al Jasbo Collins, with interviews conducted by Hyde Gardner and music provided by the Lou Steen Trio, later replaced by the Mort Lindsay Quartet and then the Johnny Gallerini Quartet. This new version of the show was unsuccessful, resulting in a significant number of NBC affiliates dropping the show, and the format eventually returned to a comedy-oriented talk variety program on July 29, 1957. The next host for that was a man by the name of Jack Parr.
Many people say, well, what kind of a show is this going to be? And the thought occurred to me as I was walking out here. I really don't know.